What's going on, guys, and welcome back to F1 2021 My Team Career Mode for Season 2, Round 19, the Australian Grand Prix. It is the penultimate race of the season. The Drivers' Champion has already been declared. Lewis Hamilton won the championship. He secured the championship last time out in Brazil, but the Constructors' Championship is still to play for, and there's still, second, third, fourth place are still very much to play for. So, and to be honest, it's the top three. Mercedes, Red Bull and McLaren are all in the fight for the constructors, so it's going to be interesting to see how that all goes. Now, I end up putting a new turbocharger and a new control electronics on the car because, I changed the thing last time and we didn't get an engine penalty, a grid penalty for some reason. And I'm going to have to change these now. I was going to try and go to the end on them, but I'm going to have to change them. So I've decided to put new ones on here. Now that should give us a grid penalty once again. However, I'm just going to say it right now. The game's glitched out once again and I haven't been given a grid penalty. So I'm going to have to try something different to I think what it is, I'm putting the parts on the car like in the pre-race, thing. I think, and then doing quick practice. And then it's not giving me the penalty going into qualifying and into the race. I think from now on, until this issue gets fixed, it's an issue that does need fixing, but I think I'm going to try and see if, maybe for future, if I put the new parts on after practice and then go into qualifying, hopefully it will give me the penalty as I go into qualifying. So I don't know, I think it's just a glitch at the moment that's rather frustrating. So on to Q1, it would be a dry qualifying, however the race is going to be wet the whole race by the looks of it. This first qualifying lap was not the best because, well, first of all, this track isn't one of my best tracks. It's not one of my quickest, it's not one of my favourite tracks. You will remember that if you saw my Australian Grand Prix from last season. But also this lap got massively hampered because I had Christian Lundgaard in front of me the whole time, in my way, slowing me down. So I could have gone quicker, but unfortunately I didn't. However, it didn't really matter because I did get through to Q2 anyway, just about P13, Alonso up there in P7, so I know my pace isn't going to be that great here, but I think I could have gone a little bit quicker if I didn't have Lundgaard right in front of me. He does also make it into Q2 though. Yeah, Lance Stroll out there in Q1, maybe the biggest surprise. However, I think he's gone out in Q1 quite often. Q2 though would not, once again, also not be a particularly good lap, and yeah, I would go out in Q2. It's all just way too close between the top 5 teams, the top 10 drivers, and then Pierre Gasly, once again, as always, he's just like that one driver from the the midfield that seems to just get his car way up there, and it's almost getting worse now because the midfield cars are actually somewhat catching up, and it's such a close field spread this season, which is really awesome to see, and it doesn't look like we're going to have a regulation change going into next season. I have a big issue there on the curves, gets a bit sideways, definitely loses me a lot of time there. But yeah, it's going to be interesting how we go into next season because the field spread is really close and there isn't a regulation change. Well, there hasn't been one so far, and I think we would have heard about one by now if there was going to be one. So yeah, really, and I have a lot of R&D points at the moment to spend because I actually have got all the upgrades that I can, but the next upgrades I need to have Spec 3 facilities, and I don't have any Spec 3 facilities, and I'm kind of saving up my money a bit at the moment to hopefully get a good driver for next season. So yeah, like I said, we end up P11, Fernando Alonso up there in P9, so he doesn't get massively far. So yeah, this should have given me like I should have been starting at the back of the grid here, but glitch with the game, it's not going to happen, so we're going to be starting further up the grid. A little bit frustrating, but hey, let's see how we go.
It's race day here in Melbourne as we continue with what could shape up to be one of the best Australian Grand Prix. We're a stone's throw from the enormous Port Phillip Bay for today's race at the 3.3-mile Albert Park circuit. It's a bumpy racing surface here, and the 16 corners could prove especially difficult in the wet conditions. Watch out for a safety car at some point during the Grand Prix. It's not going to be plain sailing for our drivers today, although with the sky falling as it is, perhaps sailing isn't too far from the truth. Anthony Davidson, could be a wet one today. Great to have you with us. What are your thoughts?
It is a touch damp, isn't it? Well, as a driver, there are three big things to worry about when racing in these kind of conditions: standing water, tyre temperature and visibility. Judging distance to the cars around you is really tricky when you're driving through the vast amounts of spray that these wet weather Pirelli tyres kick up.
Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position. A very happy Carlos Sainz will start second. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Norris, Verstappen, Daniel Ricciardo and Perez, Fernando Alonso, Gasly, Shaw and Esteban Ocon, Lundgaard, Vettel, Charles Leclerc, they've taken a grid penalty, and Russell, Tsunoda, Bottas, Antonio Giovinazzi and Lance Stroll, Raikkonen, Mick Schumacher, Mazepin and Nicholas Latifi. That's it then, it's time to go racing as we head to trackside for today's race.
Alright, so here we go. We're on a rather wet Australian Grand Prix Albert circuit. It's not pissing it down, throwing it down, however you want to say it. But it is wet. We're on intermediate tyres and off we go. We get a pretty decent start alongside Pierre Gasly on the right there. However, into turn one, he brakes a little bit later and I'm just kind of hung out on the outside and can't quite do anything. We continue on here through this next longer straight section and we have a Red Bull and a McLaren side by side up ahead. The Red Bulls back to their black normal, well, kind of navy blue livery. We actually go for a dive at the inside of Pierre Gasly. There's a yellow flag behind. I think it's more just the case of there's a lot of cars going into a chicane more than anything. We managed to get the power down and just about stay ahead of Gasly, and we're here up in P8. We actually started the race P9 thanks to some grid penalties. Like I said though, we should have been P20. We should have been last place, but the game's glitching out with the grid penalties at the moment, so there's not really much I can do about it other than for the future I'm going to try and maybe change things a little bit in the way that I, when I do my penalties, I guess, see if that affects anything, because the penalties seem to get given when you go out on track, so they should be getting given to me when my car goes out in practice, in the quick practice sessions, but that's not happening for some reason, so don't know what's going on there. But we carry on here. We've lost a little bit of a ground to Alonso there. Just that section there is a very difficult section, but up ahead there are some issues. I think I think it's the Red Bull of Sergio Perez all over the place up ahead, and that's kind of backing a few cars up here. He's had a little bit of sideways action through that quick corner there, and that's a corner that we're gonna see some action at today. Don't you forget it, because you won't after all the action you'll see at that corner in this race today. And speaking of action at that corner, we come through here this time lap number 2 at this quick section, and once again it is Sergio Perez at the front of this train, and he gets caught up and does a massive drift. Awesome style points there for Perez. Massive drift, great job to hold it through that corner. But now I think that's Daniel Ricciardo's got past, Max Verstappen's got past, and now he's alongside Fernando Alonso, my teammate, going through this next section. And now we've got to run on Alonso, but we're not going to fight him too hard, and he manages to keep it around the outside. And yeah, I'm just not going to fight Alonso too hard here, because I'm almost thinking that, you know what, I really don't want to compromise Alonso's race here if I can help it, because I really shouldn't be in this position. I should be at the back of the grid, but the game's having issues, so I'm not going to push too hard to, destroy Alonso's race here. Not push as hard as I usually would. As we look at Carlos Sainz, he's currently in 3rd place, but now he has made a mistake at that corner as well, spinning it around. This time though, he does not catch it quite as well and ends up in the gravel, in the sand, and has to wait for cars to go past to come back on track, and we go past him there on the left. And yeah, poor Carlos Sainz, he was up in 3rd place. He's now dropped down outside of the points because of that slide, and here's him recovering back onto the track, and he actually manages to get his power back and get going again with Yuki Tsunoda, and has a little bit of a battle with him into this next section. They're side by side, but I think Carlos Sainz is just about gonna win out in that one, and he's back in the race, but he's lost a lot of positions and is now well out of the points. And now Sergio Perez once again has gone for another slide. I think that's 3 times in 6 laps that he's gone for a slide at that corner, and this time Fernando Alonso has managed to get the position on Perez. So he's up another position, awesome for him. And now we've got Perez right in front of us. Perez is really struggling here, like massively struggling with that corner. I mean, already we've had, I think, 3 issues from Perez there, and one from Carlos Sainz as well as we head through the next time. And once again, he's not got it as bad this time, but on the entry curve this time, Perez once again gets sideways around there, and this time it's going to invite us to go round the outside and around this corner here, and we're just going to force our car through, get the position, and we're up into P6. Sergio Perez having massive issues here today at this track, and he's not going to be the only one. It's not just going to be him and Sainz. We will see some other cars have some issues later on. Now I'm kind of bridging the gap to Perez a bit because he's really struggling in the wet here. He's struggling so much. And we are now trying to catch back up to Fernando Alonso, our teammate. But like I said, I'm not going to be pushing to get past him because I just don't think it's really fair what's happened with us with our grid penalties. So I'm really not going to push Alonso too much here, and to be honest, I'm struggling to anyway. I'm pretty much maximum pace right now, and he's somewhat keeping ahead of me. We're maybe catching him a little bit here, but we tend to catch him a bit and then he gets away a little bit, and then we catch him, then he gets away. So it's all relatively even at this current point in time. As we now look out on the other Ferrari driver of Charles Leclerc, he got dumped down the order because his grid penalties weren't as they were more fair, I guess, compared to my unfair lack of grid penalties. And he is now trying to make his way through the order. I believe he's got Esteban Ocon in front of him in the Alpine. And yeah, he's trying to see if he can get past, but it's not easy, not the easiest track to overtake on this one, especially in the wet. As now we look on to Max Verstappen. He is in third place. I think he's in second. I think he's in fourth place actually, but he is now having a slide as well. It's not just Sergio Perez in that Red Bull, it's both Red Bulls now that have gone for a slide at that corner. Max Verstappen, he's managed to catch it very well there, but yeah, that's lost him a lot of time. He actually had a pretty big lead over myself and Alonso, but now you can see he's just up ahead of Alonso ahead of us. We've got Perez and Gasly behind us. We've kind of split off from the rest of the field a little bit. I think you've got Sebastian Vettel actually just on the tail of Gasly. But yeah, Verstappen seems to be struggling as well. Those Red Bulls seem to be struggling more than anyone here at that part of the track. And now we head on once again back to the Ferrari battle. Carlos Sainz is caught up to the back of Leclerc now, but Leclerc is right up the back of Esteban Ocon. But Esteban Ocon is the next one to go for a beautiful drift at that same part of the track, and he lets both Ferraris get their way through. Once again, a great hold from Ocon there, but so many people struggling with that part of the track here.
There seems to be an issue with our ERS. Good news, it looks like the fault has been fixed.
Okay, that was a little bit of a scare there. We had the radio engineer come on and say we've got a bit of an issue, but it was only with the ERS, so not the end of the world anyway, and it actually got fixed straight away. So thank God for that, because I did not want another DNF. We only had one 2 races ago in Mexico, so thankfully that all seems to be fixed and there are no other issues at the moment with the car. We've come in for our one and only pit stop onto a second set of intermediate tyres, and as we come out of the pits, the safety car's coming out to follow us out of the pits. What's going on here? Something's obviously happened on track, and that actually allows us to get past Alonso and Verstappen. Alonso undercut Verstappen in the pits, or jumped him in the pits, and we've managed to overcut Alonso, but purely because of the safety car. If that safety car didn't come out, or if it came out, I don't know, 10 seconds later, we wouldn't have got jumped. And this is why, because Esteban Ocon's gone for another spin, but this time he's ended up in the gravel, and that has brought out the safety car for some reason. I don't really know why. It was really the same incident that Sainz did, but this time Ocon doing it brought out a safety car. Don't really know why that was, but that's what has happened, and now we're up into P4. We've got Alonso behind us because of the safety car. I mean, the timing of that was perfect for me in a way, but I too once again feel like a little bit of a cheat. You know, we've got the grid penalty thing, and now we've just jumped our teammate because of the safety car. I honestly feel really bad for Alonso in this circumstance, but now we've got to run on Lewis Hamilton. We're actually having a look to the outside into turn 1, but we can't quite get it done, and Alonso and Hamilton manages to go up ahead of us. But now we've got our teammate Fernando Alonso behind us, and he's having a look around the outside. And you know what, I'm still going to give him a fight here. I'm going to give him a good old fight, and we managed to just about keep him at bay. But it's actually a McLaren 1-2 right now. The McLarens have been on great form this season. Both drivers, especially Lando Norris though, who is leading the way. But hometown hero Daniel Ricciardo in second place. He was looking like a possible victory here last season, but the two-stop strategy he went for didn't work out, and he ended up down in like 6th or 7th place. But this time, intermediate conditions, everybody's going to be on a one-stop here. It's not going to dry out, or it's not expected to dry out anyway. So second place is looking pretty good for him, but he has got Lewis Hamilton, the championship leader and the championship winner for the season, behind him, who is pulling away from us a little bit here. We're struggling to keep with the Mercedes, but speaking of the Mercedes, the other Mercedes of Antonio Giovinazzi is in no man's land. He's got dropped down the order quite a lot because of grid penalties, but is just not making his way through the field at all here. He's stuck right now behind the AlphaTauri of Yuki Tsunoda, and I believe that is the Williams of Valtteri Bottas. So he's really not doing a good job here. He should be further up the grid for sure. I don't even think he's in the points. He's definitely not in the points. So yeah, Giovinazzi's got some work to do if he wants to keep that Mercedes seat for next season. As we look ahead, we're still just about keeping here with Hamilton, and we're actually pulling away from Alonso and Verstappen a little bit here. So as much as I do feel a bit like it's a bit of a cheat that we've managed to get ahead of Alonso here, as I mean, we really wouldn't have had any chance if we got our grid penalties that we were supposed to. Because we've got a bit of a gap to him now, I'm going to keep pushing and see if maybe we can get a podium. Can we steal a podium off Hamilton? Will Ricciardo be able to stay in that second place though? Because Norris has kind of gone off at the front. He's got a decent gap up ahead, and Ricciardo is maybe ever so slightly falling into the clutches of Lewis Hamilton. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. You can see that Hamilton does have the pace over us for sure, as Carlos Sainz is out of the session on lap number 27. It all gets worse for him and for Ferrari. I think Leclerc is like right at the bottom of the points positions right now, like literally P10, and Sainz was in P3, spun off, and has now had a DNF, mechanical failure. So not a good day for Ferrari, especially for Carlos Sainz. As lap number 28, the second to last lap, Alonso's actually managed to catch up to us a little bit. He's almost within a second now, and we go through this fast corner here once again, but we've got yellow flags up ahead. That's Lewis Hamilton, and we very nearly go into the back of him. He's had a slide through that corner and has caught it, but very, very sketchy, and that puts us up into P3. But we look at a replay here from Hamilton. He just goes through massive sideways moment. He tries to catch it, but then has to catch it the other way, and very nearly hits him, and he actually does slightly graze the wall there, but I think he's just about managed to keep it away from damage. You just see here, he judders to that side, and he's just constantly trying to catch it, and he just about hits the wall, but I think he manages to keep the front wing off the wall, so he doesn't damage his car, just a little bit of a bang with the front right tyre. But that puts us up into P3, final lap of the race. Alonso's actually showing some good pace now and has caught right up to us, and I thought, you know what, I really feel cheated here. I feel like Alonso's going to be really cheated here. I've got him because of a grid penalty and because of the safety car, so I think, you know what, I'm going to do the team player thing. I'm going to give him the podium because I've had 3 wins this season. I've had quite a few podiums. Alonso hasn't had as many, and I think he deserved it more than I did at this point in time, so I've let him by. I'm going to give Alonso the P3. This is the team game. We're not going to have Fernando Alonso for next season, just because I like mixing things up season to season with my team, seeing how the driver transfers work out. But I've been happy with how Alonso has performed this season for us. So in this final, or second to last race of the season, I'm going to give him the podium. He deserves it more than I do in this race here. We get driver of the day though, and it was a fun race.
What a fantastic Grand Prix that was, and an excellent win for McLaren. Anthony Davidson, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
Well, they played the safety car to absolute perfection. There are so many factors to worry about once the race is neutralised. I mean, do you pit for fresh rubber? Do you have the space behind you? How much fuel can you save? If you answer all of those questions correctly, you'll have a good chance. And that's exactly what happened today.
Our drivers are making their way out for the podium celebrations, and it's going to be McLaren picking up the winner's trophy. Congratulations to the entire team for that fantastic performance.
So Lando Norris wins another race. It's the Australian Grand Prix this time for Norris. Daniel Ricciardo comes in for a very good P2 at his home Grand Prix. It's awesome to see him finally have a good race here after a bit of a disappointment last season. And Fernando Alonso gets that third place. It would have been ours, but I just thought it was right to give it to Alonso. He deserved it more than we did. Our lap times, fastest lap times, are actually almost identical, within a tenth of a second. So he definitely had the pace. He was really, really good here. And yeah, we just got super lucky with the game glitching out with that grid penalty, and then also with that safety car. The Drivers' Championship's looking crazy. Lewis Hamilton has already won the championship, but second place is ridiculously close. You've now got Lando Norris up there, and I think he's only like 2 points ahead or something like that, ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, who is then only a couple of points ahead of Sergio Perez, and then Max Verstappen's there too. We're in P6. Alonso's up to P10 because of that performance. At the bottom of the grid does not change at all. But then the Constructors is really exciting because McLaren moved themselves into the lead of the Constructors' Championship, 6 points ahead of Mercedes going into the final round, and then Red Bull are only 17 points behind McLaren. So it is going to be it's not going to be a fight for the Drivers' Championship in the final race at Abu Dhabi, but it's going to be a fight for the Constructors' Championship between McLaren, Mercedes and Red Bull. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that will pan out. But anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.